Sorry? It is an example. I'm going to put that later on for each area. So what we've done is we've declared the doc type. We've declared the bot. Now I'm just going to make sure that your every I can put this comment on every line. Does that make sense? Just to know that where each area is starting. It's good thing to have in your page. A well commented, even well commented CSS they say, but we can't guarantee that everybody works in that fashion. But I've not created sub content at the moment. I will make the separate divs once you've done this much. So tell me when you've done.
So should I write comments as well?
No, you don't have to, and if you don't want to write them.
Why you didn't close after wrapper?
Because that is at the end, isn't it? All these are inside the wrapper.
Okay. Cover the wrapper. Yeah. And then two inside the yeah.
Dana is really tall. Dana is really tall. No, I like girls who are tall. I don't know.
I was like small.
You like?
No, especially when I was a teenager, I was so like jealous of the other girls when they were like small.
Hi.
It's more feminine, you know.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Like it's really
body built, isn't it? That's a body structure. It's nothing. I mean, I understand you say girl look, because some people have really very thin
Frames, yeah.
frame basically. They can be tall, but they have a very
But
thin frame. Frame is thin. Not about how how much fat they have, but the frame itself is very thin. Like my shoulders are very broad, so I can understand what you mean. I have got my cousins. This thing is so,
Yeah, just
I think,
narrow.
narrow. They don't look even even if they put on it, they don't look fat.
Yeah,
Yeah, because of
they
the
can like put so much. Yeah. But yeah,
No, I don't mind myself. I'm okay. Yeah, I love myself. I've never worried about my weight.
they're more functional.
Yeah. No, but I'm just maybe my baby belly is not going. It's killing me.
Can you make a photo?
If you can suggest me something,
Yeah,
do
why not?
suggest me.
Why not?
Because that's the only thing which is, I mean, I don't have much. Like as in people have lots.
No problem. I mean, something simple, no problem. Just when you have time to sit down to chat, maybe 30 minutes.
I can maybe really make some time. Yeah, if you can suggest. I'm not a gym person.
That's fine. You don't have to.
I don't, but I'm not. I can't.
You tell me when. We just sit like 30 minutes to screen.
Okay.
And if we sit down, we can make it.
That's lovely. Really nice.
That's right.
Because that's my objective.
Oh, that's fine. I'll help like.
Because because this is affecting my back.
Yeah. We need to. Yeah.
My post, and I usually I'm standing. Done. Can you make sub ones now? Okay. Within our header, how many do we have? In my header section, we said we have 3, which is div for a logo. Yeah. We have header text and we have contact. Is that right? Contact. And then we have in navigation, we didn't have anything. In banner, we don't have, but in our main content, we have the similar 3. Is that right?
So we go in navigation and
Yeah, we go in, we don't need anything in navigation. In a header, we just go in that, press enter, and write down 3 divs inside it.
Sorry, I don't know. I just realized.
No, you are warm, but I think she's closing it for noise.
Noise. Yeah, I hear the noise. So, what shall we do?
Should I switch on the air conditioning then? And if it is really hot, if I put that on 19, it will circulate the cooler here. I have keep the temperature 19. So if it's hot, it will I think the lowest it goes is 90. Many lower than that. Sorry? That one is of header, isn't it? That close is of header because everything is going inside header, so you can't close that then. And then same way in main content, you have logo, headed main content 1, main content 2, and the main content 3. Is that okay? We had wrapper within. You want something? Done it. Okay, now go in your header, inside header, and create 3 discs. One is for logo, one is for company name, and one is for Oh, you're doing really good. Okay. That's really nice. Good spirit. Okay. Now, once we've done this, is a Dana. Who's this? Dana. Okay, we've done the file. Now, if I save this and I run this, obviously you will not see anything fantastic in your page at the moment because they are all just different divs, isn't it? One line. So at the moment they're just one lines. Is that right? They are not going to come up like this until unless I set it like that. Do you understand? I am thinking in my head, I want this.
You have to think about the borders, layouts of each.
Even if I put borders now, does that make sense? It will not come up as anything because this structure is what you want. But by default is just one line, isn't it? So these are all just coming as separate lines. Do you understand? Do you understand my concept? What am I saying? They're all just coming as separate lines. They haven't been floated left. They haven't been told anything. Is that right? Yeah? So let's do one thing to make it look slightly better. So first, what are our essentials, right? So let's go back to our notepad. First of all, I need to have a CSS. So file, new. Okay, if I said div and I said width, what width am I setting? Okay, 95%, okay? Or 920 pixels, whatever you want at the moment. Okay, pixels. I can say float left because I want them to be floated left. But even though then, does that make sense? You want me to give it a border? You want to see them? Is that what you want me to do? I can give them border. Float and border. But imagine if I write down div width 920 pixels here, all the divs will be 920 pixels. Is that right? Do you understand? If I write down width 920 pixels, then this is div, isn't it? All of them are divs. So they all will have the same width, which I cannot have actually. Can I?
So we need to name them, right?
So we need to name them, right? We need to make sure. But what is generalized is that I want float. I need a float. Is that right? All of them should be? All of them should be floated left?
No.
So that means we can't actually write down this property also inside it. Is that right? You can only write down a property in this, what you want for all the divs, isn't it? At the moment, if you want border, I'll put border. Let's say black. So this is your CSS. I can attach the CSS to my file. Dana, is it feeling better?
Much better.
Isn't it? I should have thought of this before. I needed a cooling now. What do you want me to show you? Okay, so we have this and we have this, and at the moment every div is appearing as a line. Is that right? One full line.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now what we need to do is,
Can I see CSS file, one TX and then how
so black.
Oh, okay. Then we close it, right? Yes.
Is that okay?
Layout, name of the file, what was it?
Div layout.
Yeah.
I mean, you can keep it whatever name I gave that name. So is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Once we've done this, now look. If I give, let's say, width, I'm just giving that 920 at the moment. Just for the sake, I'm just giving this width property to my div. Just all the div tags will have that. Just so if I am in here now and then can 920 pixels, right? But I want this to be centrally placed. Does that make sense? On the page. I want this div to be centrally placed in the whole this thing, right? So for that I need to do one thing. Remember margin hyphen left auto and margin hyphen right auto. What does that mean is, let the browser decide what's going to be the margin, and because we are in the page, it brings it in the center. Yeah.
I don't get this line. Did you put the underline somewhere? The CSS or
Underline. No.
on the HTML, I find underline on every under every.
That is your border.
What border I put it, but I don't get it on my.
I wrote body background red and I wrote background for div as white. And I'm also going for this. Yeah, I'm going to set the presets. I'm setting them 0, I mean, obviously, and then that's where we're going to start from. Yeah. Yeah, that's how your page is going to look. I don't like red because, I don't know, this red color doesn't. I like crimson is also red, but it is just different. This is cherry red. That's. Yes. Here.
Yeah. Margin is like one more space.
Is it coming from margin?
Don't add space.
I don't get. I need a comma somewhere. That's why I don't get underline after every word.
That is your border.
But I put border solid.
Check the way you've written it down. You might not. This is not /. Okay. Ready?
Yeah.
I mean, I just need to know whether you guys are ready for me to type. No.
And background, one background.
Simon, you were saying I'm inspirational. I see Isabella and Nader as my inspiration.
No, not in that sense.
No, in every sense. When I see people who want to learn more and more, just inspires me so much. Just like, I mean,
Not in that sense. In sense of glory.
oh, I don't think that was inspiration.
I want to.
No, I wouldn't. I would have prayed and I was in my house. Oh, come on, it's mine.
Personal.
Yeah, but at least try to share. I don't know. It's fine. I don't think it will count because it's outside. It won't color. Even if you try to block it, won't stay there. Okay. It's the only HTML bit inside will change that. I think it separates the HTML code from the type. That's how the color coding is working. So it will not turn blue.
When you put, so that's me,
Let the compute browser decide.
okay.
That's why the whole div wrapper will go in the center. Right? So whatever is the size of your browser, does that make sense? Your page is 920 pixels, so always sit in the center. Usually, nowadays we don't work with pixels. Does that make sense? We work with percentages. A percentage, right? A percentage of the screen so that it works with almost every screen.
Percentage is compared to the variable. When you say 120%, 10% bigger than whatever it
The
is.
screen. Whatever the screen size is.
Compared to the screen size.
This is screen. This is screen. So maybe say 100%, you are saying full screen, right?
Yes.
And if you open on mobile, it will be the mobile size. So whatever viewport is. Okay, if I say viewport means whatever device are you watching your website on. Is that okay? Okay.
This background, if body background is all, but this background is related to what?
Sorry?
Just this background. When we just put the body background, all the page.
The whole page, right?
Whole page. And this background is relates for the
Dave,
yeah.
I said background white. It's not working. On your screen, it's not working. Here, this is how it will be then.
Oh, on my screen it's not working.
The white is not working. Something is wrong.
Is there an issue?
I'm sure you've not put semicolon on the first before.
I don't have the margins,
What margin?
like the auto one.
Yeah, but because your screen.
When I open here,
Uh-huh.
there's no there.
No, your margin is not there because you've not set it 920 pixels.
Oh,
It's not reading it.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah.
Okay? Okay, is everybody with me now? Yeah. Now, okay. Now every div is 920 pixels. Is that right? My outer is 920. Is that right? My wrapper is 920. My footer is 920. My main content is 920. They're all 920, right?
yeah.
But now I need a different dimension for logo, header text, and contact, and a different dimension for MC1, MC2, and MC3. Is that right? So I cannot put that separate until unless I have a way of specifying that. Does that make sense? So that means I cannot work without IDs. I will have to make an ID to recognize them. Does that make sense? So here, now in your page, in your CSS, it's with whichever way. Does that make sense? Whichever way you want to go first. Do you understand my point? So if you are in your index, you need to make sure you give an ID to your logo, and usually we try to keep the same names. Does that make sense? So can you please give IDs to your, at least if not else, can we give IDs to our inner divs? Logo, header text and contact, and then your MC1 ID is equal to MC2 and ID is equal to MC3. I mean, we will eventually make IDs for each one of them, but at the moment you're trying to see what is the need. Why I'm doing this is because you can see the need why we do it. Does that make sense? Not just because I want to do it. But sometimes, believe me, on internet when you look at the CSS, there is too much properties mentioned which are not even needed. I mean, they're just general habit of writing them down and they just keep writing. Sorry? No, I've done them in header and I've done them in MC. Done header. Yeah. I've done logo, header, text and contact.
On your CSS, you define each of these values.
Yes. Sorry? IDs can't have gap. Okay, have you written this down? Okay. Now I need here my logo. How to make an ID is hash logo. I'm just going to create them first. Hash header text. IDs cannot be the same name as any text, and they cannot have spaces. You cannot have a HTML's keyword as an ID name, right? And it shouldn't start with a number also. So these are my IDs, right? This is how I've created my IDs. Now the first thing to divide, to put them in that is width. How much do you want for your logo? So at the moment, I'm just making it 300 pixels. float left. Let's say 250 and float and margin hyphen right 10. Can you see what I've done? I've done logo and I've said width 250 pixels, float. I've taken the margin right away from contact. Does that make sense? It does not need margin right. Because I just want the logo and header text to have some difference in between. Right? So the contact doesn't need any right margin. Just so that you can see them. Well, you will see them because there's a border to them. Is that okay? Yeah, okay. For MC1, it's the same thing, but I'm just changing the dimensions. Does that make sense? I'm making it 300. All of them are 300. Again, the last one doesn't have right. Left. You know, look, when you say float right, you think because you're thinking alignment. It's not alignment.
Okay.
Does it make sense? It's just space available next. It's not where to place it. You understand? So we don't need that. And whatever dimensions you've given, actually, will just be there only. You don't have to say float right for that. You don't. Header text is 400.
Wait, 400.
Yeah.
And float right.
Everything is float left. Nothing is floated right.
Okay. Margin same 10 or.
Yeah, margin is same 10 pixels. The last one doesn't have margin.
And after header text we go to contact, no?
Yeah, we do contact, which is float left, which is 250. The logo is 250. The contact is 250. Header text is 400 pixels. MC1 and MC. I could have written down hash MC1 comma hash MC2. Both of them that have the same right. Does that make sense? But so once I save this and I show you the page, should I show you the page? Does it place where we want the things? Because that's margin. That's a margin. The margin which we've given. But we will have to take this header text out for that contact to fit there. Does that make sense? There's slight problem here. because I have got logo, I've got header text, but I've got this header sitting here. Does it make sense? That's the whatever I wrote in between, which I shouldn't write because I know I don't have any text to be written down in my box, isn't it? So computer doesn't know where to place this text. This text. This it knows where to place. Do you understand? But it doesn't know where to place this text. This one which is sitting there in that table. So I need to get rid of this text and even in your main content, and then you will see that your page is fine. Sorry?
Which text you have to get rid of?
The actual div content for your header. Is it? Oh, I know why. I've been so precise, I forgot that I have given more. Now this is okay. This is another thing which you will have to remember. When we are giving this pixel size, I gave this pixels as 10 pixels, right?
Yeah.
Can you make them as 9, please?
9.
Actually 8.
All of 8, yeah?
Yeah, all 8. And I'll tell you why.
All 300 pixels. Can you go back to the CSS?
Yeah,
Put some comment how it looks like in the page.
yeah, 1 minute.
So you get the logo out of it.
No, logo is fine, header text is fine. I have to get rid of wrapper as well. The word wrapper shouldn't be there. Because look, my page needs to start from there, isn't it? That was just for us to write down, man. If you want the actual correct description, but I'm just trying to figure out why is this navigation here. Did I calculate it wrong? 920, isn't it? 250. 500, 900. Well, I'll tell you why. Because border is considered to be part of the size. So we have border around everything, isn't it? So 1 pixel is getting added. And it did not have enough space to show you that contact there. Does that make sense? We had our logo, header text and contact, but it did not have that space available because it was in overflow.
So we have to use
The margin. The margin, because if I remove, I mean obviously in real life I did the calculations right, but in real life we don't give borders. Does that make sense? We don't usually have borders, but borders is inclusive of the size. Does that make sense?
So we can take the border out.
You can take the border out if you don't. I'm just going to keep the borders. I don't want to take them out because of otherwise you won't be able to see them. Does that make sense? I mean visually you will not be able to see them. Do you understand? The areas. But can you see my the layout is fine, isn't it? because okay, reduce your margins to 6, it'll be fine.
Should they stay a little bit near the can I go up to
6, just change. Yeah, because give your margin as 6, it'll become fine. It's becoming because it doesn't have the space to put it here because it's overflowing. Just 6. Because look, there is 1 pixel, 1 pixel, same box, right? 2 pixels gone. Another box, 2 pixels gone. That's 4. Another 2 pixels. Do you understand?
Yeah, it just takes all this space.
Yes. It's not safe.
We remove the border. No?
If you remove the bottle, it'll be fine. Footer has gone down. Footer has gone to the right place. This main content needs to come out. And this should not close it. This is after.
MCP, there is no margin.
Yeah, we don't give margin. Because there's nothing at audits right. Why would I give a space on the right? Those notifications still out there. Your NC3 is up. NC3 is here.
So Deepa,
1 minute.
did you remove the border?
Yeah, I did one. Yeah. Okay, first of all, this one. Your borders are also marked.
No, no.
You need to put semicolons at the end of your lines. And if they do not work,
Yeah.
on your page, we can't have this because we are using that space to create this because then it doesn't have the space to write this. Right? This banner is fine. Okay, main content, you don't close it here because main content closes here. Isn't it? Because these
Yeah.
three divs are inside.
Yeah.
Borders are still not going. You are saving everything
I'm using Google.
Tables. Here that is the CSS doesn't seem to be attached because this is general div structure, isn't it? Doesn't
Yeah.
seem to have the same as your CSS part. Just need to use this padding here. This seems to be a div layout, right?
Yeah.
And this is extra.
Yeah. Because we have so it's going to be paint and setting.
This link
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Your footer is not at the right place because I think you shortened the size of this. Somehow, can you see this is big?
Yeah.
This is,
Yeah.
the size is not correct. So maybe you did not give them the enough width. So like if you
Yeah.
give an NC1, NC2, is it coming up? Yeah? Is that okay? If you put a height to it, they will have a height, but that's you don't. Yeah, I don't have this. Yeah. You don't because you're using border. If it doesn't fit, it will push it down. Yeah. No, your main content should not be written. Take this string out. Take your wrapper out. And then take this writing out. Just, you're making a div. You're not writing anything in it. So you're going to write down in that area. Take the header out. No, 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 no. No, just write in header. So my this div is actually in this place. I'm going to be writing something where I need to. And the main content is time.
But for each feed, the heights are the same.
Yeah, so I think that this is fine. I think this one because there is a space. You have taken 8 pixels as a size. No, 6. And the last one. Last one is 9. Because it can't fit here, that's why it goes up. Look, if you are, you have to be slightly careful, and then that's when we are doing pixels. If something is going to be a bigger size than that, it will not fit in. Does that make sense? And it just drops it in the next line. Do you understand? It won't stretch because it can't, because you put an outside div. Is that okay? Second, if you do not write down, if I write down here width 300 and not 300 pixel, it will not work. Does that make sense?
Okay.
And the border is inclusive of the width we are giving. Do you understand? So you have to, this was to calculate basically, and that's where your mathematics skills will come in. You would be able to add and multiply and subtract your figures, right? Now, why did I take it as 920 pixels? Because 920 pixel is considered to be a default screen size, minimum screen size. Does that make sense? Most, like you can go down to 800 pixels per, but then that's not, usually nobody goes down to that level of resolution these days. 920, yes, you know, with old screens, some people might be still on that. But there is a higher level than that, which is 1080. 1080. So 1080 pixels. Does that make sense? So it's up to you when you're designing for a desktop, what pixels do you want to keep in mind? Does that make sense? So that is your designing thing, that what pixel size or what screen size are you planning for? Do you understand? So 1080 is considered to be the, sorry? 4? We don't, no, we don't make, because because we don't have clients who would be going that up. Yeah, maybe, but not, at the moment 1080 is the one, the standard screen size, right? In few years, maybe the screen size will go up where everybody would have a, you know, wider, whatever. But standard screen size at the moment, and the resolution is considered to be 1080 for normal set of, right? For smartphones, it will be different. Do you understand? For the phones, it will be different. But see the magic. 1 minute. Here in my link, if I write down media, is that right? And I say equals, and I say print. Is that okay? Shintan? And I say save. Look, what does it do to my page? No CSS for this now. The CSS is gone. Although it is linked with my page, but it's not there. Does that make sense? It's not there. But when I say print, the CSS comes back. That means this CSS should only apply when printing. Does that make sense? This CSS only to be applied when printing. Do you understand? So what that means, I can create different CSS for different things. Do you understand? I can create different CSS for different things.
Like what? Like different things.
Screen. If I put screen, if I put print, I can say handheld. Projector. So because usually what happens is on projector the colors are slightly different. Does that make sense? Because of that light. So if you are making a mega presentation and you want your web page to look slightly different or different colors to be used on the projector, the entire website just needs to say is projector. Does that make sense? And that CSS will applicable to projector. Yeah. So you see, I can write down in my file. Usually media is all. That means this CSS for all the devices, all the types. Is that okay? If you don't write anything, that also means the same thing. But what I'm trying to say is that once you start thinking that way, then you can actually decide different CSS for different things. Do you understand? And at the moment, don't forget I have okay, I'm going to leave this like this, right? Look, link href, text, relation, style sheet, this. Is that right? This is my CSS, and if you look at this, sizes are important, isn't it? Is that right? But you have calculated this sizes based on what? This, am I right? Do you understand?
Yes.
Effectively, you have your div was 920. That means your wrapper was 920. Is that right? You've calculated everything else based on your wrapper. Is that right? Yeah? Isn't it? You've calculated everything in proportion to your wrapper. Because 920 pixels is your wrapper. That's why in the first, this has to fit in that, right? So I said 250, 400, 250. And here I just said 300, 300, 300. And I use desktop ring to place the margins. Right? Now, let's say you were planning for a handheld device. For a smartphone. Let's say you were planning for a smartphone, right? What should change? The width, right? The width should change for all of them, right? Now, if I leave this as 920, is that okay? Just explaining you, we won't do that today. But if I just change this 920, leave that 920 like that, and change this to, let's say, and I make this as is that okay? I can actually make it 48. It should be all right. Yeah. And here also I do the same thing. Does that make sense? I go by 30, 30, and 31, 31, 31. Does that make sense? I make them equally. I make them as 31 percentage. I'm just going by rough. I've not calculated them accurately. But if I calculate them accurately, it should be fine. Is that okay? If I do this, I need to change the. Wait, I've done one. This. Can you see that is fit? The rest everything is fine.
No.
Sorry. This rest everything is the same way. It's just the footer because I think the 31 is less. I need to keep that as 31.5. Let's say. Yeah. Slightly more because I have more margin on the right hand side. Does that make sense? But can you see what I've done? Now, if I reduce the screen, as far as my wrapper is also not percentage, right? If my wrapper was percentage, still my wrapper would be percentage, the whole thing will keep changing. Is that okay? So if I change one, now if all I have to do is, I mean, if I make my wrapper also percentage, then everything works fine. Does that make sense? If I say, now look what I'm doing, I've changed that to 95% of the screen, right? Refresh. That's 95% of the screen. Right? Now this is what is a problem, right? But can you see how effectively it works? Only thing what you will have to take away is that on a small device, on top of that my size comes down, my divs have to be blocked. They can't be inline because they have to go, they can't be next to each other. Does that make sense? They have to go like that. That's all. So instead of my divs going like that, I can't have this structure on mobile phone. Can you? These 3 columns you can't get because the things won't be readable. Does that make sense? So where we floated them, we'll take that float out. So all I have to do is write down another CSS. One more. Does that make sense? But I don't have to declare everything again. Does that make sense? I just have to take that float out, override that float thing, so that divs stay like that, right? But that should only be applicable to my page handheld device. Does that make sense? So it will only be applicable when somebody is looking at my website on a handheld machine, on a handheld device, right? Some people don't want to work with percentages. Does that make sense?
And you can make a statement on HTML which CSS you follow.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. If on my if I have this link, right, I can say media handheld. Then I have got 2 CSS attached, but only one of them is applicable based on the device it is on. Does that make sense? I can attach as many CSS I want, and they all will be working as cascade, overwriting each other, but they will only overwrite if they are for the same device. They will not overwrite each other if they are for different devices. Does that make sense? But what I'm trying to say is some people do not want to work with percentages. Some people want to work with definite sizes. Is that right? Like I want my design to be pixelated, accurate, right? Then they design everything according to pixel, but then they start from the smallest unit, which is like how much div size do they want on the mobile. Does that make sense? What they do is they decide, they write down different CSS for different devices, or they specify different sizes. If they ask computer, they don't use this media thing. Does that make sense? They want to be very accurate for every device, right? So what they want to do is that they will want to ask what is the size of the screen where the page is being looked for. So the first thing the computer will check or the website will check is what is the screen size. So it tells you the screen size, that feeds back. Does that make sense? That feedback's the right, that is called media query. You ask the system what's the size of the device, and it gives you the answer back, and then you work out the rest of the thing. That's a JavaScript. You can only ask something to computer with the help of a language, and that's done through JavaScript. Or CSS can do that actually. CSS can do that. We'll talk about that. That is called media query. Your CSS can question that in the beginning. Does that make sense? So we'll talk about that. That's how you make responsive websites. That's how it adjusts to the size. But have you seen the difference in what we've done when we did pixels and we do percentage? Does that make sense? But now there is one disadvantage of this, because what will happen to images if they were in? Will they reduce the size as well? That is what we need to think. Images can reduce the size. Images can go down as well, right? But what I'm trying to say is it's not just the text, it is everything in correlation which you have to think. What is happening to your images? What is happening to everything? Does that make sense? It's not just the structure. It's the what is inside that structure, what do you want to do with that, right? So that's why, but the first thing to learn is you work with 920. Does that make sense? Or 1080. You try to get your structures right as you want first. Does it make sense? So you'll have to practice, let's say, 1 or 2 layouts, or maybe 4 layouts, that this is what I want. Can I get it done with the pixel information? If you can get it done with pixel information, then you start working towards responsive. Do you understand? Because it is going to need, you've not, at the moment, I haven't put pictures in. My page is blank, literally. Is that okay? So but once your structure is ready, this is the first step in designing. Once I have my structure right, all I have to do is put things in, isn't it? So let's say what you were doing with cakes exercise or any other exercise, you know the structure. You have to write down your ing tags wherever now, isn't it? You have to replace this header text with the name of the company with h1 tag. This one will have, so first the structure has to be correct so that you can put your data in, and then we leave this structure as a, what you call, as a template for the rest of the pages as well. Do you understand? But are you all clear with this, creating this? More or less, or you can try it. Yeah? What I want you to do is, the best exercise I want to give you is, for your homework, I've given you one, that's a repetition of another layout, but the code is given already. Does that make sense? The code is already with you. I just want you to do is draw one, something like this, which you like, which you want to achieve. Does that make sense? Right? And then try writing the structure for it, and you try writing it down. You will have errors, don't worry, don't bug yourself with that. Bring it to the class. I'll help everybody with their code. Does that make sense? That how to get it. It will be nice if you can put data in, because when the data go in, it's not the structure you want. My text should be slightly this side, my picture should be slightly this way. So it's good to have the structure, but put some sample data in. Yes, you can use the dummy text to see that this is how I want. I don't like this. Because once you will put the text and images in, you will see what you call the look. Basically, this is just a structure. The look will only come when you put the dummy text in. Sorry. Just type lorem ipsum on the Google. It will give you. I think it is libsum. If I'm not wrong, the website name is libsum.com. Right? But if you write down lorem ipsum, IPSUM, it'll give you the website for the dummy text. Okay. Now, can you see that what size of images do we need from this? What kind of images do I need? Sorry? So you are looking at one which is 920, a landscape picture, which is banner. Do you understand? This picture is a banner image, isn't it? So this is a big picture. So you're looking at, if you set the size as 920, then it has to be minimum 920. It can be more wider, but you need a landscape picture. This is a landscape picture, right? Which is this is more. Now this you have set 300 width, but I haven't decided whether they all need to be the same size or you want smaller or bigger. Does it make sense? But the width cannot be more than 300. Is that right? The width has to be 300. And then on top of that, logo is whatever size you decided, 250. Does it make sense? Logo will have to be smaller than that. So it also gives you the rough idea of the sizes of the image. That's why it is very important to have this layout in mind first, because otherwise what images are you asking the client to give you? He can give you all sorts of images, but then they need to be edited to get to this size. Does that make sense? So that's why the design is very important before we actually go and make websites. Go. No, you can be here. I want you to do your learning diaries. But I'll come back. I need to pick up my daughter and come back. She'll be out of the school and I'll be off. I am every time late. It's okay. I'm gonna leave you guys here. Leave the learning diaries here. I'll be back. I won't go home. I just need to come back here now. I'll come back. Yeah, no, I'll send you the file. I'm not going home. I'll come back to the office. But I want you to do your learning diaries and just leave them here. Does that make sense? And the homework is to create your own layout. But you will have to draw. I want to see them on paper first. Does that make sense? Now, it's not necessary to draw it on the paper. You can do any software. Word, whatever you like. But I want, it's easy to do it paper. You do it very quick. So just do it on paper and that should be all. I don't want it on computer. But I want you to try that you made an effort to go back. Are you all okay with whatever we've covered today? Oh, I'm going too fast for you guys. Mohammed Hussain is going to say you're going too fast. Yeah, paper because on the computer you can't do without paper. Let me get you your learning diaries.
The explication was that CSS is for help us to reduce the work. Now I see CSS is to make like page.
Let me get you your learning diaries.
The explication was that CSS was made better to make it easy. Now I CSS. Now I see CSS has been invented to make life page.
No. No, believe me, CSS is not easy. If you were doing it in line code, you will get it.
Always in CSS, always there are crossing things. Make it complicated. In body we just make many information. Then the device which processes the body information. Then we are lost.
Did anybody?
Can we just recheck this same thing again on Tuesday?
In where?
On Tuesday.
Yes, I can. Has anybody seen my phone? I'm just so silly. Where's that?
You can call.
Don't call because it will go in the office and they will be very crazy. They go crazy with my phone.